Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Al, and Mr. Pandaria Remix has just gotten a buff to the amount of bronze as well as threads that you can now gain. With a new buff that's currently active called Time Runner's Mastery, players can now gain additional bronze from bronze caches, which can be acquired from open world activities, slaying bosses, but also through a variety of daily activities. And the amount of threads you can also gain has been increased through the various spools that you can acquire from endgame and open world activities. In today's video, I'm gonna go over all of the different ways that you can use this buff to catch up to everybody else in Mr. Pandaria Remix. Whether you're looking to invest the bronze and the threads to create a super powered character while the Mr. Pandaria event is active for a limited amount of time, or if you simply just want to get a bunch of bronze to buy up all of the mounts and variety of different cosmetics before the next expansion of War Within. As per usual, if you guys enjoy regular updates like these, be sure to follow the channel. Otherwise, let's dive right in. The recent Time Runners buff that have been added for additional bronze and thread gains isn't a buff to bronze and thread acquisition. Rather, it's a buff for very specific items that you can gain from open world content or dailies or certain other activities, those being the Spools of Eternal Threads, which allow you to gain a bunch of threads all at once, but also the bronze caches. So this buff doesn't affect your overall gains of these currencies and threads, but rather it empowers caches and spools specifically. So it'll primarily highlight some of the ways that you can get more spools and caches as quickly as possible. For starters, if you're a brand new player to WoW Remix or haven't checked it out at all, now would be a pretty good time to join in and catch up to everybody else, because as you play the game organically, you'll be able to earn a bunch of bronze caches naturally from completing achievements. By exploring these zones, slaying some of the more rare enemies, and completing the story quest lines awards you with a ton of bronze caches. And all of these scale, with lesser bronze caches awarded for some of the easier objectives, as well as greater bronze caches for some of the more challenging objectives. And brand new players can get a ton of these bronze caches just by playing the game organically. And while you're lower level, you also get the benefits of the low level scaling. Mr. Pandaria Remix has a system where as you gain additional levels, your item level requirements as well as the gem requirements do increase, which allows max level characters to really break past their limits and create some of the most overpowered characters available. But while you're lower level, you're limited to how much gear and gems and power a character may have at a time. But this also means that while lower level, a lot of the challenging enemies and objectives are a little bit more forgiving, which allows you to farm out a bunch of bronze on easy mode. And as you level your very first character, you also will be able to get additional 3,000, 7,000, and 30,000 bronze on top of it, which awards you basically 40,000 bronze just for leveling a character all the way to level 70. Now, another way to utilize the Time Runner's Mastery buff is by participating in daily activities. At every one of the bazaars, you'll see that there are 3 quest givers that give you daily quests. You have the World Apparel NPC that gives you a scenario daily, which awards you with a greater spool of eternal thread and a greater bronze cache. You also get a raid daily quest where you have to defeat 2 raid bosses, which can be done easily through LFR raiding, as well as a dungeon daily quest, which also awards you greater spools and greater bronze caches. But you also get a daily bonus for participating in group and game content. Completing a random daily scenario also awards you with bronze caches and a spool of eternal threads, as does the heroic, which all awards you the same amount every single day. The same thing can be said about doing a random normal dungeon, but also a random heroic dungeon. So that's 4 activities that can award you quite a bit of bronze and threads. Then we also have raiding content, which is on a daily lockout. Joining an LFR raid is one of the easiest pieces of content that you could do as a large group, though there's a good chance that you will likely end up doing these also on normal or even heroic, since a lot of these raids are very accessible even for low level players. Now, another way of collecting threads specifically, or rather getting a huge chunk of threads daily, is by defeating world bosses, which are all located in various parts of Mr. Pandaria. Over in the north, we have the Isle of Giants, where Undasta stands. Undasta awards the greater spool of thread, which is the orange version, and all the other world bosses also will award a greater spool of thread, which is a huge gain for threads on a daily rotation. After Undasta, I usually move on to the Kunlai Summit, where you can defeat Shah of Anger. Heading a little further south into the Vale of Eternal Winds, we have Dalaran with the Silis Warband. Over to the east, we have the Timeless Isle, which you can start visiting at level 45. There we have the Celestial bosses, where defeating one of these bosses will award you the greatest spool of threads. We also have the Ordon Sanctuary with Ordos, the Fire God of the Yongol, which takes a little bit to access, but if you follow the path, you'll be able to take it directly towards the boss himself. And then over in the Isle of Thunder, we have ourselves an Alak, the Stormlord, which will be our final boss that you can defeat once a day in Mists of Pandaria Remix. Now, another way of obtaining additional bronze, but also primarily threads, is going to be through the Pandaria treasure vaults. After you unlock the Isle of Thunder, depending on your faction as Horde or Alliance, you'll be able to talk to a faction's quartermaster in order to be able to turn in a daily quest for some of the lesser charms of good fortune, which all can be obtained through a variety of daily content and slaying rares within any of the zones of Mists of Pandaria. That quartermaster in the Isle of Thunder on a daily will be able to give you a key to use at the Trove of the Thunder King. After you get the key, head over to the Shadowpan Assault holdout area and talk to Toshi to access the Trove of the Thunder King. In the vault, you have a bit of a speed gauntlet, where a player is given 5 minutes to unlock and pick up as many treasure chests as possible within the vaults. Now, there's a couple of different chests there. There's the gold and red chests, which award you with maybe a little bit of bronze, which are a little bit less lucrative, but then you have the big golden Mogu-shaped chests that award you a ton of threads and quite a bit of bronze. As you're running through the vaults, you want to try to maximize as much as you can out of those 5 minutes inside of the vaults, and try to loot as many Mogu-shaped golden chests as possible, because that is where you can get the most amount of threads. There's a couple of different ways of doing this, but you definitely should spec your character for as much mobility as possible, because for the most part the enemies inside of the actual vaults are not nearly that difficult, and you'll want to maximize your movement as much as possible to get as many treasure chests as you can within those 5 minutes. There's multiple different strategies of how you can approach these vaults, but for the most part I try to make sure I make it all the way to the end to defeat the final mini boss at the end of the vaults, because he always has at least one Mogu-shaped treasure box on his back, or maybe we'll have a couple of them located around where he initially spawns. And the more you do these vault runs, the faster you get at them just from practice alone, so you'll be able to get more and more efficient as you get more daily runs within the vaults. Now, another method of obtaining a ton of bronze really quickly is by simply participating in raids, because every boss that you defeat will always drop a cache of bronze depending on the fight's difficulty. If you have a lot of time in a day, you should try to clear as many of these raids as possible on the highest difficulty available. However, if you don't have a lot of time in a day to clear out all of the raids, but would rather just do one raid a day just to be the most efficient on your time, then the best one is going to be the Throne of Thunder. Throne of Thunder generally takes just about as long as Siege of Orgrimmar to clear, but some of its bosses, specifically the Dark Animus, actually drop you double the bronze and even more threads for defeating those encounters. I think this was initially done because Dark Animus was a very difficult encounter that was the roadblock for many in Throne of Thunder, but ever since they nerfed it, it's generally easy for most people to get through. And as you get through the Throne of Thunder, Lei Shen is also pretty generous in the amount of bronze as well as the amount of threads that he drops. And if you do the instance on Heroic, then you also get the additional boss of Ra-Den. As a boss, Ra-Den is actually one of the easier bosses of that entire instance, and he drops you a generous amount of bronze as well as threads. So if you're very limited in time but can only get one Heroic raid out of the day, then try to make that raid Throne of Thunder if at all possible. And with that being said, that's going to be all the different methods that a new player can take advantage of the Time Runner's mastery to get a bunch of bronze caches as well as a bunch of threads, catch up to all of the other super powered players, and purchase all of the other different cosmetic rewards and mounts while Mists of Pandaria Remix is still currently active. Quick reminder, Mists of Pandaria Remix is going to be going away around the same time that the War Within expansion is launching, so you're looking at a roughly a 2-month window as of making of this video. So if you're still behind, now might be a good time for you to join in for Mists of Pandaria Remix to get all of those goodies before they're eventually gone for good. Let me know in the comments down below if you guys are going to be taking advantage of this new buff to catch up on bronze as well as on threads. And if you are going to be farming some bronze, are you looking to actually use them to reinvest into an actual character and try to have some fun making someone seriously overpowered before the event is gone? Or are you primarily going to be using all this bronze to buy a couple of mounts and a couple of mogs that you're interested in from the Mists of Pandaria remix mode? Let me know all those thoughts in the comments down below. As per usual, if you guys enjoyed this video or found it informative, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. I would very much appreciate it. And as always, in the description of every single video and live stream, we have a link to our Discord community channel. Probably the best place to reach out to me directly in case you want to let me know what you thought about this video or hang out with the rest of the community to discuss some of the upcoming changes. Join our Discord to become part of the community. But otherwise, thank you all so much for watching this video. I do hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know all of your thoughts down below. And as always, I'll see all of you guys in another video.